Okay, so it's 4 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and get started, and Dina will be assisting us in the background, continuing to let people in as they join. Thank you all for joining us today for our presentation on discovery through transition, using the discovery process to guide transition for students with significant complex needs. My name is Jennifer D'Alessandro, and I am an education consultant with the Department of Ed in the Vision Outreach team. And my co-presenter is?
My name is Laurel Henry, and I'm an educational consultant with the Wyoming Department of Education Vision Outreach team.
Next slide, please. So what is the discovery process and why use it to guide transition? Discovery is a process of getting to know the student and helping them get to know themselves before we help them plan for their future. It provides an opportunity to spend time with students as a means of finding the conditions where they are at their best, and provides a practical strategy to determine complexities and preferences. I also just realized that before going on and beginning the presentation, I did forget to share my housekeeping. If you have questions, just add them to the chat. Dina will be collecting and gathering those for us, and we plan to answer questions at the end, just in case we already were going to answer them in the content of the presentation. And with as large of a group as we have signed up, we're asking if you will please keep your microphones muted. All right, sorry about that. Next slide, please.
On this slide, we're going to talk about what discovery is. It's a unique way that contributions offered by individuals with disabilities are their strengths and things can be utilized in a standard job market or in other settings. During this process, people should get to know their students in the setting that's best for them. This can be a variety of different environments. It can be maybe their home environment when they're with their family, or it could be their school environment, just looking at them when they're at their best. The process is not a plan, but it's a foundation for employment and customizing outcomes. Sorry, my jaw is talking here. It's a process where people use self-determination to make choices for what are best for them. The student determines what they want, and they're able to make that choice. During this process, if you think about the career that you're currently doing, we all, if somebody would have said, well, you should be a mechanic, I would be a horrible mechanic. So using that self-determination is super important for the students that we work with. Next slide. Why discovery? This is a critically centered approach where it's not necessarily the traditional approach that we would usually use with students for an assessment. A lot of times traditional assessments focus on what the student's deficits are. During the discovery process, we actually focus on what the student's strengths are and utilize those strengths. We look at their skills, their strengths, and what they can contribute to the world, which is what makes this process unique. It gives us a better understanding of how the person with the disabilities, their disability impacts their life and employment. So for example, maybe the person is not a morning person. Maybe they do a lot better in the afternoon. So maybe looking at jobs where they can work in the afternoon. Or maybe they're better in a certain setting. So maybe they're better where it's quiet, or maybe they're better in like a warehouse setting. So looking at those factors. Identify what supports the person needs to be successful. That can involve a variety of things as well. So what supports does that person have? Do they have family that will give them support or provide them support? What are their transportation needs? What do they look like? Maybe they use a communication device, and how is that going to help them in their employment setting? Identifying the student's interests and contributions. So what is the person interested in? What do they enjoy doing? How can they contribute to this job or this employment setting? And the last part is using the curriculum, content, volunteer work, and work experiences to determine what their likes and strengths and skills are. Next slide.
There are also laws that shape serving students with disability. Specifically, if we go back to IDEA, which probably most of us are familiar with, there is a specific section 300.1A. The purposes of this part are to ensure that all children with disabilities have available to them a free, appropriate public education that emphasizes special education and related services designed to meet their unique needs and prepare them for future or for further education, employment, and independent living. Now, the presentation materials will be shared with you later in a PDF format. And so I did put that link to that reg there to help you. Also, somebody's microphone is not muted. If you can please make sure those are muted. And then continuing on, next slide, please. To 34 CFR 300.43, specific to the transition services. And these services mean a coordinated set of activities for a child with a disability that is designed to be within a results-oriented process, focused on improving the academic and functional achievement of the child with a disability to facilitate that child's movement from school to post-secondary or post-school activities, including post-secondary education, vocational education or training, integrated employment, including supported employment, continuing and adult education, adult services, and even independent living or community participation. And I think this is really important to really focus on and draw our attention to, is that results-oriented piece. So we might have them at a specific grade level or at a certain stage in their educational journey, but it's important that we're always forward thinking about how is this going to tie in and prepare them for when they are no longer in the K-12 system. Next slide, please. Continuing on with this same piece, it's based on the individual child's needs, taking into account the child's strengths, preferences, and interests. And this includes instruction, related services, community experiences, and the development of employment and other post-school adult living objectives, and if appropriate, acquisition of daily living skills and the provision of a functional vocational evaluation. Transition services for children with disabilities may be special education if provided as specially designed instruction or a related service if required to assist a child with a disability to benefit from special education. Again, I've included that link for your reference. Next slide, please.
The Workforce Innovation Opportunities Act was signed July 22nd, 2014. It's also called WIOA. It amended the Rehab Act of 1973. And in that act, they included federal legislation that defines customized employment. Customized employment under this act is defined as competitive integrated employment for individuals with a significant disability that is based on individuals' determination of their strengths, needs, and interests of the of individuals with significant disabilities. It is designed to meet the specific abilities of individuals with significant disabilities, business and business needs of employers. And I think the great thing about that is sometimes we think, well, we want to meet our students' needs, but under customized employment, it also ensures that the employer is getting those needs met as well. And I think that is what the difference is. Next slide.
Moving on to additional legislation, Title IV, amendments to that Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And I just want to point out, you think about that Rehabilitation Act originally was, established in 1973. We're more than 50 years out from it. And I think that there still remains a lot of growth and improvement that we could do in this area. Reiterating what Laurel already shared, customized employment means competitive integrated employment for an individual with a significant disability that's based on their strengths, their needs, their interests, and it's designed to meet specific abilities of the individual with the significant disability, but also the current unmet needs of that business employer. Next slide, please. There's also some relevant state legislative initiatives that are important to note, such as the Employment First Initiative. And the Wyoming Department of Education also has that profile of a graduate, which includes college and career readiness for all students, regardless of whether they're on a diploma or certificate track. And for your ease and your reference later, I did include the links to both of those. Next slide, please. So using that discovery process, discovery is the focus. So rather than looking at existing programs and making the student fit, it really is looking at the individualized student, their unique needs, interests, and skill sets, and truly individualizing the program, that I in IEP. We also want to note the importance of friends and family in obtaining meaningful information from the people who know that student best. I think that sometimes we get so focused or bogged down in that academic piece, and we have to keep moving, and we feel just the weight of the time schedule, the time crunches, the limitations. But there are opportunities to obtain that family, friend, community, school, the broader picture of that student in meaningful ways without bogging down your daily schedule, because you want information about that whole student, not just what we experience and see in the classroom, but the potential that they possess and who they are outside of that classroom, and maybe those skills that you haven't even had the opportunity to see them demonstrate yet. There is a link here that was that's a pretty good resource for like getting to know your students, and it just has some innovative ways, like some real practical ways to get to know your students. I know, like thinking about even like when we do like the initial evals or 3-year re-evals on students, and there's always that parent interview piece, that family engagement piece, and those are great opportunities to obtain some of that information and be updating it as you go and getting to learn more and make that more meaningful and applicable to what you are doing on a day-to-day basis to prepare this student for their future. Next slide, please.
Next, we're going to talk about the phases of discovery related to transition. The first stage is career awareness. This takes place in a school setting. You can expose students to all kinds of different jobs in a school, from custodians to people in the kitchen to teachers to administrative staff. It's a great opportunity to give students the opportunity to be exposed to a variety of jobs on campus. The second phase is career planning. This also takes place in a school setting, generally. And it can include just learning about continuation of learning about different jobs, planning for future jobs. What is the student interested in? What do they like? How do they feel like they can contribute to the world? And the third stage and the last phase is to career development. And this usually occurs in the community. It's where students have the opportunity to have work experiences. It's where you can also collaborate with other agencies like Book Rehab. And it's a great opportunity to be able to get together and work on how everyone can work together to help that student. Next slide.
Delving into each of those stages just a little bit more. Stage 1 is career awareness. And this stage, while ideally we want to see it occur at least by those, upper elementary grades, grades 5, early middle school grades, it's never too early to begin these stages and to begin to discuss this and consider this. I even think about my own child with special needs who is a kindergartner, and I think about just like his little propensity to have like some stubbornness, and if we didn't target those now and start looking at those and look at his strengths, his interests, develop those work habits through chores or little expectations. If we wait till 5th grade, really it could be too late, because those behaviors, those work habits, they would be kind of hard to break at that point if they are not well on their way to being developed in a positive way. Also in that stage 1, there's a process called the life book. And the life book becomes a living document that grows with that student as we move through the different stages of the career plan. That life book becomes a student career portfolio that goes on through the years with the student. And this is not something that is like it's not a scrapbook. It's not keeping memorabilia of what they are. What it really seeks to do is continually paint that picture of who is this student as a learner, who is this student as a potential contributing member of society as they go through the educational process. Even at the elementary level, there should be exposure to career awareness opportunities. Think about some of those things that are even done, I know, as early as preschool, where they have like their little learning centers with little dress-up tubs of community helpers. That truly is dipping into career exploration. Or when elementary students take a field trip to the post office to see what the workings of a post office are like, or during fire prevention week when they get to go and explore some of that. All of that is kind of just getting on the edge of that career exploration, and you can do things that are much more purposeful and intentional and bring that into your classroom. During stage 2, that career planning phase, you can start to maybe explore or visit community and broader opportunities. The portfolio that you are developing also becomes that first impression when considering potential employers. And this is where that life book begins to transition that direction. So when you think about capturing information in there, that information is very purposeful, very intentional. And really, a key piece of the discovery process is discovery really is a very authentic alternative assessment tool or piece that can be used, because while traditional, standardized assessments, we see all of those big looming gaps, those deficits, those things that the student still struggles to perform or demonstrate. Discovery helps us to focus on all of the positives, all that they do bring to the table, all of the potential and things that they can do. Ideally, sorry, my mouse took off on me. We know we'll always have kids who haven't been through the discovery process or haven't covered like previous stages, like when students are moving into our districts or coming into our program at different stages of the game. And that's okay because you start where you need to. So it would be our hope and our dream is to see this systems change occur and be happening in all of our districts across our great state of Wyoming. But you start where you need to, and if you have even
to reach down and press it.
sorry, somebody needs to mute, please. So even if you have, say, a sophomore in high school and they have no discovery, none of this has ever been done, it doesn't mean that it's too late to start it. You can start them where you need to, obtaining those pieces of the information, and we'll get into that a little bit more too, but you can start to do those pieces. And we actually have one of our districts in our training cadre right now that they got pretty excited about seeing how this process works, and they are currently working with a student that's near the exit stage of that stage 3, and getting very close to the graduation or period of their educational career, and they are taking them through the discovery process to really seek and drive that post-secondary plan for them. Next slide, please. So looking a little bit further, stage 1, what does this really look like? The discovery, the life book, that future vision, because it's never too early to be wondering what skills are they going to need to develop now so that they can be prepared later. Those occupational exposures, business tours, service learning volunteering, introduction to vocational rehab services. So some of you may think, but wait, isn't this kind of young at an elementary level? And they're actually, our voc rehab actually obtained a grant a couple of years ago. And I know that there are at least 2 or 3 pilot schools that are part of that, where they, through that pilot, are able to, DVR is able to get involved and begin to work and serve students be involved with students as early as age 10. So you think about 4th or 5th grade, and you think about how much stronger and more prepared that student can be in their career planning instead of waiting till 14 or 16. Next slide, please.
So next, we're going to talk more about the life book and the career portfolio. So the life book gives us a positive picture of who the student is, what their preferences are, what their goals are, what their skills are. It just captures the students and how they're going to, it drives the future for their career. So it's very important. The life book and the portfolio also, the career portfolio usually occurs in middle school and into high school. And these books can be in a variety of formats. If you prefer to do it in a narrative, you can do it in a narrative format. You can do it on a Google Doc. You can do it in a Word document. You can do it in slides. You can really do these documents in whatever format is easiest for you. The most important thing is that this book needs to transition with the student through their school career. Next slide.
Stage 2 is that career planning. You're thinking more your middle school age students, junior high age. Those services continue to occur in the school setting with a discovery vocational focus. Now is a time where you want to begin to look at a vocational profile with that student, looking at some schoolwork experiences. When we think about our school campuses and the plethora of opportunities, vocational work experience type opportunities that we can begin with right there on our own campuses. There's lots of things. I think the big thing to really ensure that we don't overlook is ensuring that we're exposing them to things that they are interested in. I think we all do a great job, existing jobs with those things that we have predetermined and pre-set up, whether it means, you know, delivering mail to the office, doing some potential jobs in the school office, having a coffee cart or a smoothie cart, or, you know, a variety of different things. But the big important thing, and the thing that sets Discovery apart, is ensuring that we're providing those opportunities that really focus and capitalize on the students' interests. Because as Laurel mentioned earlier, if it's not driven by their interests, they're not going to succeed. And I think that any one of us could say that would be true for us. You couldn't pluck us into a job, you know, plunk us down into a job that we had no interest and no passion for and think that we would succeed at it. And it's no different for these students. So you have that plan set up that is individualized and specific to them, and then you make sure that they're following through with that and having those opportunities. Maybe it's a self-employment plan. Maybe the student has a dream of doing their own self-employment, you know, their own small business. Setting them up with a mentor, doing some service learning. And if you're in a location where there is a job center, visiting that job center. If not, there's plenty of virtual opportunities. There's just so many virtual experiences that we can bring those right to our students as that first step. That's not going to take the place of getting them out in those further down the road, but exposing them. So often our students, they know the job that mom goes to or that dad goes to. They know there's those jobs they're exposed to through you in their school day, or the people in their small circle, their inner circle that they know. But there's so much more out there that they can be exposed to, and they should be exposed to throughout the 16 career clusters. Next slide, please. Stage 3, this is where it really hits the road and it gets super exciting. It's exciting all along the way, but these are those students full on at age of transition, and those services should be provided in school and in the community with vocational rehabilitation services and or other community partners such as Wyoming Independent Living or Wyoming Services for Independent Living, depending what part of the state you live in. You are continually updating that discovery or career portfolio. Now that vocational profile is really driving the exploration and even the customized employment plan. You want to match their work experiences, provide apprenticeships or on-the-job training, job shadowing, lots of opportunities, and capitalizing on their skills, placing them in things that they're interested in. And if there's a student, going back to giving them a variety of exposures, it's important to give them more than one also. Let's say a student was very mechanical, very hands-on, and had done an exploration at like a shop or in a warehouse doing something like that, but it didn't work out for them. That doesn't mean that no warehouse will work out for them. Try a different one, because maybe it was just the climate there. Maybe the culture there wasn't the right fit, but it could be the right fit in another one. Also, when you think, well, what about certain behaviors or specific behaviors that a student may demonstrate? Think about those behaviors, and if they're behaviors that can be addressed or should be addressed, addressing those. But maybe sometimes behaviors that are not acceptable in certain job settings are going to be more acceptable in another job setting. Maybe there's a student that just kind of has they kind of will just drop some foul language here or there, and it's just impulsive. You're not going to put them customer facing in a business, but there might be a place behind, that's not public facing that they could do. Or maybe, looking at, well, what careers really do, or what job opportunities don't really care about how you're talking, and or maybe a setting where that just is kind of what happens. Hygiene issues. You know, if there are hygiene issues, and obviously we always want to be working through those, but sometimes it still is just this ongoing issue or concern. Think about where are places, what are work environments where that's not going to be as big of an issue. It's not going to be a deal breaker for them. Also thinking about the importance of a token economy. I know we said we'd answer questions at the end, but it just kind of shared across my face. Somebody said, well, is this really just meant for older students? Absolutely not. Think about all the way down to our preschoolers. Think about how we start it even when we're considering behaviors or we're working towards desired behaviors and those token economies that we set up for them. It becomes an exchange of value. Like they earn these tokens, they get something that they want. Isn't that what a money system, an income system is? It's that token economy. And so starting that from the earliest ages and stages to make it meaningful. And it also it encourages them to do what you want them to do. Okay. Next slide, please.
Next, we're going to talk about work experience opportunities. And like Jen said, this needs to start at a very young age. It needs to start at home, in preschool and early elementary school, having the student do chores at home, do dishes, take the trash out, vacuum, all those things that we expect other children to do. It needs to just start, and it starts that good work habit and work ethics. Also, work experiences at school, helping with different classroom activities or working in different settings in the school. Even like, I know in school I was a student aide, and I thought back about it. As a blind student, I was actually fairly happy that I had that experience because there were no other students with disabilities that were the student aide. And it gives you so much great work experience, from learning how to use the copier to interacting with other teachers to running errands all over the school. Our kids with complex needs need those experiences. And then work experiences in the community. So having those experiences, working collaboratively with vocational rehabilitation to get those work experiences. Sometimes we all think that we would like a certain career, but once we get into it, we don't think that that's the option that we'd like. For example, maybe someone thinks, oh, I would love to work on a farm. And then they get to a farm and they realize that there's lots of smells and things. And maybe they're sensitive to that. And they think that's not what I want to do forever. So it's really important to have those work experiences in the community. But Jennifer is next going to show you some links on different training opportunities.
I just wanted to point out also that importance of establishing those necessary pre-ets. And also there are a bunch of links here. We're not going to click on all of those just for time, but just being aware that there's so many virtual opportunities to explore and to get kids understanding and knowing just that there's so many different options. Again, going back to those 16 career clusters, you know, so sometimes in our training groups, we'll have teachers ask, or we'll have team members ask. They're like, but we're in a really small remote community. And I think one of the things that we have actually learned through going through the trainings of the discovery process is that even in some of our smallest, most remote communities, there are actually more opportunities than you would necessarily think exist. You would be surprised. But even again, going back to some of those first steps to exposure, there's just so many things out there. Like Voc Rehab has some VR headsets that I know that they're always happy to bring in. And I've actually had the opportunity to see kids interacting with these. And so those headsets immerse them into an environment or a work experience. And so they're virtually doing it. There's OneNet, there's Virtual Job Shadow. And then we had one teacher share with us that if you go to Career One Stop, if you just Google it on YouTube, then there are endless YouTube career videos. And so I did check this out before I included it here. And it does, it just gives you, as a matter of fact, even when I just started typing in the word career, YouTube wanted to bring up just endless opportunities. And what's really nice is if you get into specific things, like for students who have maybe vision disabilities or blindness, APH Career Center or Career Hub has all kinds of career conversation, 1 hour recorded things that expose you or make you aware of different jobs. I mean, even when I've just watched some of those, I'm blown away. There are jobs that I didn't know existed. I mean, if you can think it, I'm sure it probably exists. All right, next slide, please. So getting back to the customized employment piece of it, it really is a way of personalizing that employment relationship. So it meets the needs of the employer and the employee. It requires that relationships be developed and made so that you can go out. It was kind of a neat experience for me when we were in Riverton doing an on-site training. We went out and we practiced this in the community. So we had the opportunity to pre-identify some businesses that might be open to this. And then we just went out, and you can even just sometimes go sit and observe, go sit and observe a business that you think maybe.
Now I'm depressing the car button somehow.
Sorry about that. But you'd be surprised at some of the places that you would think, well, would they allow or invite this or welcome this? And going back to what Laurel said earlier in the presentation, it can look at adjusted schedules, alternate work location agreements, the supported employment, the self-employment piece. Also, in what it does is it's not only giving that student the opportunity to have employment experiences and potentially a job down the road, but it's also filling unmet needs that are not currently happening for that employer. So looking at what needs are not currently happening that they would like or that they need, but they just can't do it with the current employees that they have. And also keeping in mind that by wrapping around that VR transition navigator as part of that team, Voc Rehab has monies and the ability to also provide that student payment when they are doing some of those job exploration pieces that then, maybe now it's a win-win because that small business employer may not have been able to afford to hire them to fill those unmet needs. But now through all of these pieces coming together, it can happen. And it gives those opportunities to find out what do they like or what do they really dislike. I know, we got to hear from one student who said, I really, really like babies and little kids, but I decided I really did not want to work in a daycare. So, thinking more broadly and looking, just not just into the community, but think about the school, the community, those service organizations that exist in your area, their church community, and thinking that the reality is that kids without disabilities get these opportunities all the time. They just naturally happen. And we need to figure out ways to get these same opportunities to the kids who have challenges, to all kids. And so I have on here that bottom bullet, a Disney World deaf clerk example. And this is something that I always get very excited about when I think about it, because I think sometimes when we're in classrooms, we think, well, this child is in a wheelchair, or maybe this child doesn't speak, or maybe this child doesn't hear. Like, how would they do things? And so we were at Disney World, and I had been searching all over for this 50th anniversary bag. And Every place was sold out of it. I really wanted this bag. They directed me to this store. I go in and I look at the clerk, and outwardly, I didn't notice anything differently about her. And I said to her, I'm looking for the 50th anniversary bag. She looks at me. She holds up her finger, just indicating just a moment. She looks down at her iPhone, and then she clicks something on her screen. She holds her iPhone up to me, and on her iPhone, it says small, medium, or large. So I asked her what were the costs. She looks at her screen, she clicks something else, and she shows me. She was deaf. I had no idea, yet she was engaging as a clerk in that store, and she was doing it very effectively. So we just have to think outside of that box and not get so stuck on they can't, because they can. All right, we have a couple video links that demonstrate this for you. Dina is going to play one and then the next one. They're both short video links. And so, Dina, if you want to go ahead and play that first one, this is Courtney, and she is in an office position.
I work hard. And this one is here.
I mean, there's nothing more than you want for your child. You know, just a typical experience for a child that's growing up, that wants to be more independent, that wants to have a job and responsibilities. I mean, it's what we all dream of. Ours just looks a little bit different.
I will work packets.
She's been here for 4 months and she has just opened up. I'll walk into the lunchroom, she has friends.
Here's Tony's office. I have a package right here. Here's Tony.
She does have a social around her.
Hey, here's my friend Woo Woo. They're working hard.
How are you doing?
They're good.
Good.
Here's my friend Becky.
On the Administrative Professionals Day, I brought everybody breakfast, and Courtney wrote me a really sweet thank you card that I've hung on to.
This one's me and Kathy.
She is a joy to work with. Her job that she has here is extremely important.
I have packets.
I started setting her goals.
1, 2, and 3.
And my gosh, she's already passed her goals.
Packages that she puts together, we send out to injured workers, and it's an extremely important part of the claim.
I do encourage other companies to try it.
I say go for it. Don't hesitate. There is something out there for everybody.
So it's really nice to see her, you know, kind of just, you know, Mom, you know, back off a little bit. You know, let me do what I need to do, because I'm 24 and I'm going to get on the bus and I'm going to be strong and I'm going to be independent.
I love working here. I work hard.
All right, and our next one is a student with autism. Her family's dream for her was just to try a self-employment opportunity, doing something out of the basement of their home. And it's a pretty exciting one to see her success.
An idea that started from parents' worry is now changing their daughter's life. It's also encouraging people all over the country and proving what's possible for those with special needs. We take you inside the Be Kind headquarters incoming.
To fully appreciate potential, you have to look beyond what most people see. That's true for this warehouse and all that's happening inside.
We have a lot of stuff. It's mostly shirts.
The shirts! This success story is less about a mountain of product and the constant busyness to fill orders. It's much more about a feeling.
The energy is vibrant every day.
Watch this! And the deeper reason that brings Jordan Moore, her family, and friends here every day.
Are you dancing?
Jordan loves the shirt shop.
This is much. This much.
She's the reason it exists.
It is what at one point we dreamt of, but thought the goal seemed so far out of reach.
Something big and beautiful born from uncertainty and worry.
She struggled to do anything independently.
Jordan has autism.
I did pee.
Her parents knew the end of high school would be the end of important support and purpose.
There are very few opportunities for individuals with disabilities once they become adults. And we knew that, and that's what was keeping us up at night.
So they came up with their own plan, a t-shirt design.
We started in our basement. Our goal was to sell 40 shirts.
They'd teach Jordan life skills and job skills, folding, sorting, packaging.
She has come so far.
We first visited 4 months in, and a movement was already taking off around the country. A message of kindness and believing in someone's potential.
I did a good job today.
4 years later,
Sherbrooke Hunchback. I'm so excited.
it's still growing.
It's crazy how this just started as a little idea in our basement.
Now a 6,000-foot warehouse that soon will double.
It's been a blessing, truly a blessing.
It's changed every aspect of her life. The shirt shop has given her a job. Her confidence has went up. And she is just happy.
It's fun. We like the shirt shop.
It's so far beyond any potential and possibilities they could see for Jordan
So fun.
and others.
They send out thousands of shirts every week. And think about this. Jordan did not say her first word until she was 6. Her voice and her message now reaching millions of people. She recently launched a podcast.
Way to go, Jordan. And I just got to take a moment to just shout out her parents
Yes.
for creating this for her, saying, okay, the opportunity isn't there. We'll make it for our daughter. And look at all the difference it's made.
Yeah, and now they're hiring other individuals with
Yeah.
special needs.
I love that. And then I also noticed, I said, wait a minute. This is Cheryl's bumper sticker.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it
I
is.
said, I know this logo. Awesome story. I love that 4-year check-in. Way to go, Jordan.
They're awesome. An idea that started from
Laurel.
Next, we're going to talk about customized employment opportunities. And basically, in customized employment, it needs to benefit the employee, the person with a disability, and the employer. It's personalized. It's seeking to fulfill an unmet need at the business. The employer is creating a job for the individual that is utilizing its unique skills, strengths, but it's also filling a gap for that employer, an unmet need that they don't have. Maybe there's something that's being overlooked or not addressed. It's specifically addressing that need for that business. The other part is it's something that existing employees are not able to do. So, next slide.
So when we get into our transition discovery guide activities, the intent is for the process to begin early and follow that student through their educational journey to make meaningful connections to their post-school outcomes, seeks to meaningfully connect state performance expanded standards being taught in your classroom to transition-related activities. And the guide, once approved through our communications department here at the WDE, will be a living digital document with links to activities. So I know on the right-hand side of the slide, this is all way too small, and it actually even almost looks as if it's a bit blurred for you to read. And the intent was not for you to be able to read or access it here. But as I was mentioning these bullet points to the left of the slide, I just wanted to give you a visual to be able to envision that what is currently being approved basically looks like this table or grid. And then what it does is across the top, you have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. And across the left are those specific components with each stage of those pieces that you want to accomplish. So then let's say that you are looking at the implementation plan. What we envision this app being like is that then when it's on our Wyoming Instructional Network, you would be able to click on this box and that will open up, and these pieces that would make up that implementation plan, all of the documents, the forms, the resources, the sample activities that directly correlate to the expanded standards, it would take you right to that section in the document. You would still see the parts that come before it and the parts that come after it, but it would navigate you directly there to make it so much easier and such a working, living tool for you to apply and implement into what you're doing daily in your classroom and your program. And that it actually is at comms right now to be getting approval and getting those pieces worked on. So when that's out, look for it on our Wyoming Instructional Network. We also plan to have it up on the WDE website, and it will be public facing because we do want parents and families aware of this so that then they can be asking about it and be ready to be actively involved with you on it. Next slide. So what is our vision? This work that we are doing now actually began with a community of practice in the 22-23 school year. We had many apply, and we took about 16, 18 districts applicants, and through that we outlined and they did work. We developed the drafts of the guides. We outlined a proposal for a training plan. In the 24-25 school year, actually it started just over a year ago, 8 districts were selected from the original training groups to participate in that initial training in the discovery process. That training will be wrapping up at the end of this year. We began with 1 DVR member involved, and that was the state transition coordinator person. And now it's just kind of like it's trickling in. We now, I think, are up to 5 different transition navigators through VR that are participating in the training, accessing the modules with us, which is super excited. Our vision, our hope is to see the discovery process being implemented in our district statewide. The training materials and coaching materials are in the process of being available also through WDE, beginning on that Wyoming Instructional Network page. And we just want to share with you, we have a couple of our districts, one team, our sublet team, along with that, they happen to have the state transition coordinator as their transition counselor for their district. They were not able to be here today because they actually are meeting with a team doing discovery with another student. So they have a recorded testimonial here, and then we will share a live testimonial with you from another team member. So Dina, if you can share that recording, and we're not sharing quite the whole recording.
All right, hi.
The point of graduation and working on transitions. So being invited to participate in the on-site training was really useful for me because I felt like it really solidified how all these pieces come together and helped me to kind of synthesize all this information and like, okay, what does this look like? And we, as part of that training, we had to create our portfolio for a student and invite the student and parent to come to the training, which they were able to do. So that in and of itself was a tremendous learning experience, just figuring out how to go about the portfolio. We had help from one of the trainers and she consulted with us. So we were able to kind of learn as we went and fix things and kind of figure out how we should do this. Then in the training, the experts there with the student and parent and Jen too from Vogue Rehab were able to go through that portfolio and kind of tease out the student's interest and really, you know, who is this student and what are some of their strengths and skills and interests and all of that, and then go through that planning process, which really gave us a clearer path of what we should be doing right now and maybe what direction, that we're going to go in. So that was really informative to just see that in action and see how that could be done. And like Jen was saying, it really gave the student and the parent a tremendous voice in the process. And then what was really fortuitous, it was this particular student had his 3-year evaluation a few weeks later, and I talked to the parent about, wow, we just went through this portfolio, we just did this planning process. I feel like we got such great information. This is really valuable as an evaluation tool. Would you be okay if I use that as part of my OT eval? And she was really on board. So I was able to share the portfolio, kind of bring it up on the screen, and the planning outline in the eval IEP meeting. And then we were able to then take that information and use that to make goals for the year. We figured out in the planning that the student really needed more exposure, career exposure, and with kind of the logistics of our schedule and time, we determined like, hey, well, maybe we can go do some tours on our school campus. Maybe we can visit some different departments and just get exposure, ask questions, have that kind of learning experience. And then we were also able to kind of pick out a particular interest area and pick a skill that the student could learn that could in the future be used as a job or a career, or we don't know, but we're gonna go down that road. So that was a great opportunity for us being part of this training. And then I just wrote down a couple of nuggets, a couple of quotes. These were probably quotes from Norsiva or Charlotte, but things that I think will stay with me, and then I'll try to remind myself when working with students. If it's not an unmet need, then it's charity. So just really rethinking how we want to work with businesses to find the best match for a student. Also something they said, everyone is employable when the right conditions are met. So also just opening our eyes to possibilities, and also realizing that not every job's going to be the right job, and sometimes we'll have to pass on to find the right opportunity for success. And then the other real reminder is just looking at these students as a whole person, and what they called a two-leg approach. As educators, we're used to looking for eligibility categories, and we evaluate and we identify deficits, but we really need to, for this process, focus on those strengths and abilities and just what makes life meaningful for these students. So thank you for the opportunity to share. And
yeah, and we couldn't be there today because we are actually meeting with a student in real time, so we thought we would send in a video. So thank you so much, and we appreciate the opportunity.
All right, and we have Cheryl Jung with us to represent the Natrona team. We have 5 members that participate on that Natrona team. I just want to add, before I turn it over to Cheryl, that the importance of it being the students' interests. One of the students, and unfortunately we weren't able to get that district here today with some scheduling conflicts, but one of the students that we had in our on-site, the student had very clear dreams and objectives and plans, and was very good with her self-determination. And the parent guardian had some very different, and it was really magical to see the process work to foster the student's interests, because really that's what's going to drive it. She's not going to be successful if it's not her dream. All right, Cheryl.
Hi, thanks for having me today. So I have been in this field for almost 30 years doing this kind of work. And I knew a lot about the discovery process before, but I never fully understood the power of the discovery process until I had the chance to participate in this cohort group. A couple of things that I wanted to share from my perspective, being at the end and focusing on helping people actually achieve those outcomes, is I think sometimes we forget the word transition and what it really means, because transition describes the journey and the stops along the way. It is not a single event. It's not a single age. It is a lifespan. And when we are working with individuals with more complex needs and we look at their functional needs, we oftentimes forget to put those issues in a context. So we focus on the classroom and forget that they're part of the school. We focus on a lesson and forget that they're part of life. So by pulling in family and information and looking at them in a larger context, we begin to see those competencies as well as the areas that we could improve on in every single grade. I know when I first started in the field, there was a focus on training and then placing. That was kind of the motto. This approach takes a completely different standard, and it talks about immersing that person in their world and identifying their competencies and then growing those competencies in the direction that they want to be applied in their own life. The process takes a little bit more work up front, and it's a little different. It requires strong collaboration, but I think it's also an opportunity for us to use our existing practices and really improve them so that they're meaningful. And that, Jennifer mentioned the 3-year evaluation. What a great opportunity to bring that team together and to work more collaboratively. The laws have often driven the requirement of collaboration, and we do it on pencil and paper to have the requirements met, but we're missing the spirit of the law when we don't really incorporate all of those different folks in our plan. The last thing I want to talk about is the importance of starting early. The last thing we want to do when we have a student getting ready to exit our system is to talk about them going on into DD waiver services for pre-vocational skills training and day service placement. We have just limited their future. And we have expected that somebody else is going to be around to provide custodial care. That is not who these individuals have the right to be. I have a few former students. One student that was kicked out of every classroom, who was on his way out of district, has been living on his own, has been successfully employed, and is doing his own thing because I stopped focusing on what wasn't working and I started paying attention to what did work and what he was motivated to work on. I have another former student who is a young man with Down syndrome who happens to own his own home. He's now a landlord, he's employed, and he is working in 2 different jobs in the community. We had the chance to meet up with this 4th grade teacher when he was about 19. She could not believe that that was the same individual she had in her 4th grade class. She didn't ever see the possibilities or opportunities, but fortunately he had a mom who did and pushed the school system to provide those chances for him to grow that way. So I just want to say I learned so much from this process, even though I've had a lot of experience in the field. I'm very passionate about it, and I would love to be a resource or share with anybody that might have questions or need ideas.
Thank you, Cheryl. All right.
Sorry, one last thing I want to add. Please do not depend on systems of support to be the future of these kids, because it is soft money. We do not know tomorrow if the same resources, the same access points, and the same opportunities will be there. And right now, I think we have a really good example of all those moving parts. We need to not limit the possibilities of these students because we limit our opportunity to be part of that collaborative team and get that bigger picture.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. So now I know we are at time, a couple minutes over. I thank all of you for being here. I do want to say that, yes, Dina just said it. Somebody asked if we would be sharing a copy of the PowerPoint. Yes, Dina will be sending out a follow-up email to everybody who has attended. And in that, you will have a copy of the PowerPoint and also, yeah, you will have that. And if you have questions on the final slide, Dina, can you put that up there? I have put mine and Laurel's direct line that you can reach us by phone or email. Dina, can we put that one back up?
Yep, give me 1 second. I put your email in the chat, but I'll bring that slide back.
Yes. So we will take any questions now. I know that we have a couple, and we saved it to the end. That way we don't hold people long that have someplace to get, but that we could address them. And also because we were hopeful we were going to cover most of your questions. Somebody did ask, and Cheryl offered a nice response, and I think she reiterated that in her testimonial at the end. that is this geared more towards older children and their transition? Again, you heard me mention that I have a kindergartner with Down syndrome, and this process we started incorporating kind of as just a practice student that we could use in our training stuff. But we did start incorporating this last spring in his pre-K setting. And it is something that drives my focus as the parent when we're in those meetings. And I think that it's led to getting us to we're really in a good place, because we're really, like I have shared in his IEPs, I say, you have him for this year, or when it's the building administrator, you might have him through his elementary, but my husband and I potentially have him for life, and I don't plan or intend to have him sitting eating bonbons, flipping through channel surfing on my couch. He is going to be meaningfully, gainfully employed. He is going to have some level of independence, and that does start now. So no, it's not just for older students transition. The earlier that it starts, the better. The more potential they have to develop those skills, those work habits, starting with little chores and things. I started him out with chores at home. He took an interest in coming in when I was unloading the dishwasher. And even though at that time he could not reach the silverware drawer because he's just a tiny little thing, and he would kind of toss them up in there and then I would organize them, the beaming on his face of how proud he was that he was helping, he was doing a job, and now he does other jobs at home and takes responsibility for pieces of his day. So no, you can't ever start this too early. And I think aside from that, and if we would share the presentation, are there any other questions? I hope no questions doesn't indicate no interest, but instead means that we did a good job covering the information. Thank you, everyone.